Yes, my name is Mallory Honora. I'm the Director of Families for Justice as Healing and a proud member of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. I want to say thank you to the chairs and the committee, and thank you to our lead sponsor of the bill on the House side of the prison moratorium, Representative Chynna Tyler. I just want to pause and honor the historic moment when so many women testified from inside Framingham. I'm finding it hard to keep myself collected, to just finally allow so many of you to hear the brilliance and the wisdom and the lived experience and the vision for something better. And women do deserve something better, so years of phone calls and court links coming to this moment, and so often women feeling alone and isolated and unheard, and changing all that today. So echoing Senator Comerford that we can't go back, extending thanks to the staff of the chairs, as well as Rep. Eiderhoven and Senator Comerford's staff to make sure all of this can happen. And I hope we will continue to have all eyes on MCI Framingham and our brothers inside Sousa and Shirley to ensure that our people are not further retaliated against and repressed as a result of standing up for themselves. Yes, our mission is and always has been to end the incarceration of women and girls. As you know, for the past 3 years, incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women have delayed the $50 million women's prison project. We've stood in the gap and we've said women deserve better. We must not condemn our daughters and granddaughters to more incarceration and more generations of harm and trauma. As Sashi so beautifully described, and Brianna, we organized countless standouts and rallies. We walked across the state. Legislators received countless calls and emails, and you responded to that call. You passed the prison moratorium, and Baker senselessly vetoed it despite the clear public mandate to take Massachusetts in a different direction. Passing the prison moratorium again is urgent. Today we're submitting a coalition letter of support for the prison moratorium signed by 90 organizations across the state from every sector. We know there's never been transparency and accountability about this project, and you even heard from women inside no clarity about the future of their own lives hanging in the balance. We've had to spend countless hours filing public records requests, which is precious time that we could be spending on the ground in our communities and fighting to free women. We know that since 2022, state officials from EOPS, DCAM, and DOC have been meeting with HDR, a multi-billion-dollar architecture firm that has profited off of building 275 jails and prisons in the United States. This firm was hired by our state to study and design the women's prison. We've repeatedly asked for clarity about what is being discussed and what's been decided in these meetings, and instead of answers, we got notes from those meetings that were more than 80% redacted. There's no public information about this publicly funded process. We know for sure that under the previous administration, there was never a serious discussion about who could come home from Framingham, nor any possible alternatives. The only approach was pouring concrete, and the only question was what color we should paint the walls. This is a failed approach, a 150-year-old approach, and no one can say that better than the women inside prison said over and over and over again today. So with a new administration and a new legislative session, we have to draw the line. We have to create this pause on major jail and prison construction projects so we can shift our focus, take concrete steps to maximize and expand pathways home for incarcerated people, and implement alternatives. And I just want to get really specifically in the weeds for a second on what our brilliant sisters inside were referring to when we talk about pathways home. So there are indeed 200 women inside MCI Framingham. About 140 of them are state sentenced. Just so you know, 77% of state sentenced women are mothers, and many of them are grandmothers. And it's truly a statewide issue that affects all of your constituents because there's women from every single county incarcerated in MCI Framingham. As our brother Tamik mentioned, 20% of the women inside Framingham are actually held there before their trial, likely on bail they cannot afford or simple status transgressions related to their pretrial probation. We should live up to the promise of bail reform and the basic constitutional principle that people should be presumed innocent and free to fight their case. And just so you know, 800 people from Middlesex County signed a petition calling on District Attorney Ryan to stop recommending bail for women and sending them to state prison. There's women serving county sentences from Middlesex County and Framingham. So we should absolutely not build a new women's prison for women serving sentences of less than 2.5 years, and we should never build a new county jail for them either. We should better utilize the reforms that you have already passed, like primary caretakers. We could be diverting parents away from conviction and incarceration. And I want to give a recent example that decarceration is not just urgently necessary and practical, there's precedent. We can do this. Sheriff Katusian worked with the DOC and released almost every single county sentenced women back to the community during COVID-19. That should be permanent policy. There is no reason women need to be inside of a building, inside of a prison or jail to serve their sentence. We should be doing that again. DOC also did that very quietly for a small number of women, far too few, yet we know it's possible. DOC put women back into the community to serve the remainder of their sentence. They should do that now. 25% of women are scheduled to come home anyway over the next 5 years. We should be resourcing their transition back to the community, not investing in more incarceration. And I want to just talk about lifers who the state is trying to build this prison on their backs. Obviously, we see sisters come home, like Miss Angie, who's reaching back in to pull other women out. There are other ways for women to come home, like post-conviction relief. Some of the women you heard have pending motions before the court now. The governor already showed us that she cares about clemency. We are asking her to keep going and release women that are inside Framingham right now, particularly oldest and sickest women. And we were hoping that you all will go on to pass elder parole this session so that we can release some of the elders that we heard from today in their 70s, many of whom have served decades already. And of course, the DOC is a rogue and unaccountable agency failing to implement the laws that you all intended them to do. Medical parole is a key example of a policy that's woefully underused with extreme racial disparities in the DOC's decision-making, a reflection of the racist culture and pattern of extreme medical neglect in the DOC. And I just want to pass it to my brilliant colleagues over, but just talking about real safety and well-being. All of us want to live in safe communities. Yet only some of us live in communities where there's adequate investment in what actually addresses the root causes of harm and incarceration, like housing, healthcare, treatment, and education. We heard from Sashi, we heard from Brianna. We are not reimagining prisons, we're reimagining communities. Directly impacted women have created a path forward that is building what different looks like, implementing new approaches to prevent and address and heal from harm, innovating infrastructure to meet people's needs so we can stop the flow of people into incarceration in the first place. No new women's prison now or ever. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please.